Hello, runners and travelers. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Extraordinary Strides podcast. I'm Coach Christine, and today we're diving into a monumental event in the running world.
That's right, Christine. The Sydney Marathon has officially joined the ranks of the Abbott World Marathon Majors, becoming the 7th member of this elite group. This is a huge news for marathon enthusiasts worldwide, including yourself.
It is. I don't know how excited I am about it quite yet, but we'll definitely discuss it. So friends, though, I do want to remind you, Ashley with Mystical Dream Travel is our official runcation expert around these here parts. So if you're not already following her on Instagram, do yourself a favor and definitely check her out. Ashley, we're so excited to have you here with us again as we explore why Sydney became a major, essentially, and this must-experience event.
Absolutely. But let's not forget about the history. So the Sydney Marathon did begin in April 30th, 2000 as the host city marathon, serving as a test event for Sydney 2000 Olympic Games. That is a very fun fact about this one, because I don't think many of them can claim to fame that way.
I don't think so.
Yeah. And since then, it has evolved into a premier race reflecting the Olympic legacy.
Well, now it's been officially included in the World Marathon Majors after passing the very vigorous 3 years in a row. And starting this year in 2025, Sydney will stand alongside Boston, London, and Tokyo. And of course, this recognition speaks volumes about the marathon's prestige and the dedication of its organizers.
Absolutely. And the first Sydney Marathon as a world major will be Sunday, August 31st, 2025. And our very own Coach Christine will be there to give it its debut. This date was a shift from its traditional September slot, though. So it is positioned strategically a month before the Berlin Marathon.
I was not surprised to see that happen because I was holding different spots in my calendar and I saw that there was going to be a conflict with Berlin. So I'm not surprised. Plus, I think that there's been a little bit of feedback from runners that it was a little too warm for their September slot because, of course, they're in the Southern Hemisphere, so the weather's a little different, but we'll talk about that later. But what I love about this is that the timing offers runners a unique experience to participate in back-to-back major marathons, though I don't necessarily know. I don't think I could do it, but I know a lot of folks do. I'm kind of curious, though, what are we calling this? Is this a summer race? Is this a spring race because it's spring in the Southern Hemisphere, but we're going to be training for it here in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's almost like fall? So what is it?
Oh, I would classify that as a summer. Anything in like August, I'm still saying is summer.
But their weather is going to be like a full-on, they're coming out of winter and it's spring. So I feel like this is going to be weird.
Very true. Very true. And that's a whole nother world. And that's why we love the World Marathon Majors,
Yes.
because you get a little peek inside of a different area.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be my first time traveling to the Southern Hemisphere. So I think that'll be interesting. So let's get some other fun facts going there. What do you got, Ashley?
As we have already spoken about, it is kind of a course from the Sydney 2000 Olympics. But did you know that the Sydney Marathon is the only remaining participant legacy from the 2000 Olympics? It's like running through a piece of history when you're running on this course.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay. Well, and speaking of course, this is a unique experience because runners get to cross the Sydney Harbour Bridge, absolutely traffic-free, which is a rare treat that offers breathtaking views of the city and the harbor, of course. So let's get into some course records because so there's a little bit of controversy as to whether this is, I personally think it's going to be the toughest course now that's been added to the World Marathon Majors, but there's some controversy as to whether it's as tough or maybe not as tough as New York City. I still think that New York City is the toughest of the courses just because of the elevation changes. So this is not a fast and flat. That's all to say that it's not fast and flat. However, as of 2024, the men's course record was held by Briman Kipkorir from Kenya with a time of 2 hours, 6 minutes, and 18 seconds. And on the women's side, Ethiopia's Workinish Edessa set the record at 2:21:41. I do know there's also been some controversy with some of their participants in the elite field from last year testing positive. But aside from that, these are incredible fast times.
Absolutely. And these records highlight some of the most competitive nature of the race. It does have very scenic course sites that you can see along the way. So obviously not the flat courses that we all know and love, but definitely that dive into history, I think, is something like no other, very similar to the Tokyo Marathon, that you get to see so many historical things.
So do you like elevation changes, or do you prefer flat and fast?
Oh,
because some runners don't like flat.
Yeah, I kind of like the elevation. It gives you that little bit of a challenge of like what's coming. But it also kind of gives you that little speed when you're doing the hills and you're training, kind of prepping you for that. It gives you a little bit of speed as well. So I honestly prefer kind of your little hills. Now, not complete hills or like a mile worth of the hills, but some pickups here and there. I think it's nice for that little challenge, and it's not just all flat, to give my legs a little bit of a different workout in different areas.
Well, you have plenty of races on your roster that are going to give you that as well. But it sounds like Sydney will be a great race for you. So let's talk about how to gain entry into this marathon. Given its new status as a World Marathon Major, of course, the demand was higher than ever. Runners could have secured a spot they can still for future, but the general entry through the lottery has already been had for 2025. And again, I would definitely suggest that you go to the Sydney Marathon website and register for their newsletter. So if you're thinking of doing this in future years, you can get on their email list so that you're well aware of when those lottery ballot spots are opening up. However, again, you can get charity programs. One of my gal pals is actually doing that, and you can participate by fundraising for one of the marathon's affiliated charities. Or there's travel packages. So several tour operators offer packages that include race entry accommodations and sightseeing.
And it's obviously worth noting that the Abbott World Marathon Majors will offer a drop program for runners aiming to complete all major marathons. So keep an eye on their announcements for additional entry opportunities to come in the future.
Now, so tell me about this course, because we talked a little bit about it, but let's talk about the course for folks that are thinking about it.
Absolutely. The marathon features a point-to-point course, so something a little bit different, starting in North Sydney Oval, adjacent to Miller Street. The runners will cross the scenic Sydney Harbour Bridge and finish in front of the Sydney Opera House. That's so fun.
It's that Sydney Opera House that I think most people are most excited about, for the record. Like, I can just visualize it, and it's truly iconic when you think of Sydney. Now, one of the beautiful things about the World Marathon Majors when they're looking at these races is they do, during the vetting process, take in a lot of the feedback from runners and professionals that are out there. So they have made a few, as you've already alluded to, recent course enhancements to make it a little bit faster and a little bit more scenic. The route now includes longer, straighter sections and fewer U-turns, because if you have ever decided to do like one of those POV YouTube videos of watching what it looked like before, there were a bazillion U-turns. So we are very appreciative that they've made these changes. It's likely going to pay off in being a much smoother experience for runners.
Absolutely. Now I have to know, because I know we talked about this before. Do you like the U-turns? Do you like seeing the other runners?
I do. I do like seeing other runners, but I do know that from a perspective of slowing yourself down, a U-turn does slow you down quite a bit. Not like Berlin, where you bank a bit, but a full-on U-turn does slow you down. It is hard. And I mean, we experience that when we do Run Disney. They have those U-turn spots, and you always kind of have to slow down through those as well.
Yeah.
But I do love seeing the other runners. I am always so inspired by the by both the front of the pack and back of the pack and everything in between.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, let's not forget there are some unfun things to talk about, such as course limits and cutoffs. So the participants are allotted a generous 7-hour window for this race. So that's obviously a little bit more cushion than some of the other ones, but there are specific cutoff points along the route to ensure the safety and timely progression of the event. We want to make sure we're keeping the locals happy that this event is occurring. So obeying those cutoff times so those roads can reopen.
Yeah, that's really what it comes down to, is getting the city back up and like running. But I think it's really important to know that you shouldn't go into this where you're panicked, just to have the knowledge of it so that you can feel ready for it. So what would you say would be some things to get ready for this race weekend experience, Ashley?
So you always want to make sure you are taking into consideration going to the expo pre-race. So for this race, the Sydney Running Show is a must visit. It's where you'll pick up your race kit and have the chance to explore the latest in running gear and nutrition. Again, a quick note here, never try anything new on race weekend until you have tested it. So maybe pick up some goodies and try them at home, but never on race day. There are also going to be fuel and hydration on the course, so making sure that you're aware what that is. So for this race, they do provide new pure water in all the drink station, fixed nutrition electrolytes every 5K, and goo gels at every 20K the 20 and the 30K stations. So it is advisable to carry your own specific nutrition that you have trained with. But if you have trained with this, that is going to be on the course for you to utilize. Now, like we had talked about, this is going to be in late August, but it marks the beginning of spring. Typically during the springtime for them, the temperatures range from 60 degrees Fahrenheit to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So still pretty comfortable race conditions, not like you're on the face of the sun, but be prepared for potential chilly winds or the possibility of rain. This is always something, make sure you're taking plenty of race gear, trying a bunch of different outfits prior to the race weekend to make sure it's something that you're truly comfortable in. As we know, you have to shift your race outfit sometimes because the weather changes at the last minute. So you want to make sure you're prepared for any situation, even if the temperatures are typically relatively favorable during that time.
Yeah, I think this is where if you can try to mimic some of the conditions that you're going to experience, and by that means that you really can't 100% except to don't avoid those bad weather runs. I know a lot of us tend to not want to get out there if it's rainy or if it's warm or if it's too cold. And I think that letting yourself kind of just become familiar with the different challenges that may come up with different weather conditions during your training will pay off for regardless of whatever happens weather-wise the day of. I'm so excited that we had this conversation because I am now going to be trying to figure out how to get fixed nutrition electrolytes so that I can train for them with them during the summer, because I don't like carrying other extra stuff with me if I can avoid it. So this is so good, which again, I do recommend if you're going to be going into a different area that has potentially different electrolytes than you're used to, if you can find it online. Luckily, we have that access nowadays, and training with it as well. So one of the things that we've talked about, Ashley, is how important it is for our spectators that are joining us and, you know, our loved ones that come out on these runcations. Can you give me some ideas of maybe where we could find our spectators on this course?
So on the Sydney course, there's so many wonderful places for your spectators to come cheer you along. The first being that Sydney Harbour Bridge. This is where your spectators can see them as they make a way across the architecture marvel, have some nice views, maybe some awesome pictures of their runners coming through. You also have the rocks, which are a historic area that provides a charming backdrop, but it's also close to the course. So you can still do that little cheer to give them a little pep in their step. And then we always love a finish line moment. So the best place for this is the circular quay. It's perfect for cheering them on just before they get to that final stretch into the finish line shoot. So those are always there's. I love the end of the race cheer. You know, it just gives you that little
Yes,
extra
that tunnel.
motivation to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that some of the feedback that I've read about or heard is that because it is still a newer race in terms of how its history, it doesn't necessarily have the same amount of crowds as what we would experience at Chicago or New York City. So I think that if you are traveling with others, knowing that you can encourage your supporters to come out and cheer for you, of course, but cheer for all of the other runners that are out there as well to help steward this race along and towards its epic proportions of all that fun. Now, one of the things that I think can be challenging for folks, and one of the reasons why I hear people say that they're intimidated by the World Marathon Majors is how in the world to get around. So give me an idea, Ashley, as to what you're thinking. How do we get around when we're in Sydney?
Yeah, so like many of the World Marathon Majors, there's a couple different ways to get around the city. The first one being via trains. So the city circle line connects major spots, including near the start and the finish line areas. So always a great option. Doesn't really involve the road closures and such. So I always love those different, I call them Easter eggs to get around. And then you do have the buses and the ferries. So these offer extensive routes throughout the city and surrounding areas, making it a safe option as well. But again, keep in mind there are going to be road closures throughout the course. So keeping that in mind when you're planning the routes around.
Very cool. So utilizing an Opal card is going to help provide that seamless access across all public transportation. And luckily, a lot of these things can be garnered or had even before you leave home. So looking into it before you actually get there is always great, but not really concerning yourself too much that there's always that option of doing it when you're there. Just give yourself a little bit of buffer when you do arrive to make sure you get a lay of the land. So again, with this international trip, one of the things that I hear is that people are really anxious about where do I stay. So what are some of the suggestions that you would have, Ashley, for folks as to what area of Sydney should they be staying at?
So you do have options near the rocks and the circular quay that are both near the finish line area. There are a wide range of hotels, and you do have the stunning harbor views, which is always fun when you have a room with a view. Or you can also stay North Sydney, which is closer to the starting area, making race morning logistics a little simpler. Kind of take that stress off of you when you're getting up in the morning, you're in a new area, just making sure you know where you're going at the beginning is definitely something that's important.
And would you suggest that people should book their accommodations like 3 months, 6 months? When should they book their accommodations?
Accommodations are one of the first things that I always recommend doing. So as soon as you know your time frame, book it. Most of the hotels do offer a cancellation policy that's typically very generous. So if something changes, you can always cancel that. But if you don't have accommodations and you get into the race and it's all sold out, you might not have very many options. So always booking as early as you possibly can is the best option, in my opinion, to do.
Okay, well, let's get into, I wholeheartedly agree for the record. Like that's probably the thing that I do before I even know if I'm going to do the race, to be honest, because they book up so quickly. But we're planning a runcation, my friend. What do we see? What do we do while we're out there?
Well, the first thing, of course, is the Sydney Opera House tour. How can you go and not tour this? So there are tour options for that. There's the Bondi Beach, where you can relax on the shores, take a dip in the ocean, kind of hang out, get those stretches in, maybe do a little yoga on the beach pre or post marathon. And then there is the Taronga, I hope I said that correct, zoo, where you can obviously meet Australia's unique wildlife with a city skyline as the backdrop. I do think that's definitely something that's very unique to Sydney, you might see some different animals at the zoo that you might not see at some other ones. So this would be a great option for those traveling with family.
And I 100% agree. I feel like also if you want to have a more relaxed kind of a little bit of a light time on your feet to get some movement on, you could always head over to the Royal Botanic Garden for a little bit of a post-race stroll. Or if you're feeling like you want a little bit more pizzazz and you're up for the hiking adventure, there's the Blue Mountains tour that's very easy to get to. And I think that if you are considering making it more of a runcation, beyond Sydney, there's also that opportunity to extend your stay by maybe heading out to the Great Barrier Reef or even heading towards New Zealand. So kind of really looking at it as where can you maximize that really long, long, long plane flight?
Now I have to ask though, what's top on your list when you go?
Yeah, I mean, I love hiking. So the Blue Mountains is something I'm considering. I do want to actually book a backstage Sydney Opera House tour. And I would love to hop on over to New Zealand for maybe a train tour or something at a winery, but we will see. I don't know. We have to sit down after we're done recording. You can help me plan this out, Ashley. I mean, that's what you do. So I'll let you I'll tell you all the things that I like and you can figure it out for me. But I do think we should also discuss like what are some of the must try foods for the area?
So I think my favorite is going to be the meat pies. Is something a little unique. Obviously, it is a classic Australian snack, perfect for a quick little bite to eat, but definitely a classic to try. Barramundi is a local fish delicacy. It's often grilled, so obviously a nice little light, healthy option for you while you're there.
It's one of my favorite fishes.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, it's yummy. Yes. I like a little bit of a lighter, flakier fish. So yeah, it's yummy.
Yeah. Or you also have lamingtons. I'm not sure
I don't know
how
what that
that's
is.
really pronounced. You'll have to report back once you
Okay.
come back. It is a sponge cake square coated in chocolate and coconut. So it's a perfect little sweet celebration treat once you're finished. To me, it's giving like somebody took a mound like candy bar and made a cake in it out of it. Like it
Ooh.
sounds
I mean,
so
yeah,
good.
I like that. That does sound yummy when you describe it that way. Do I have to eat Vegemite when I'm out there? I don't think I want to.
You have to try it.
Okay.
That's part of the fun of doing world travel. You get to try all of the local favorites to get those staple items.
Okay, I will. I will definitely give it a try while I'm out there. One of the things that I find fascinating is that going into different areas, even of the United States, there's different like sayings and phrases that are more popular. And this is going to be the case for Australia. So I wanted to explore that a little bit with you. And I wonder if maybe we should kind of do it as a bit of a quiz. I'm going to give you the phrase and then you tell me what you think it means. Does that sound fair?
Okay.
We did plan this. So she's like, what? Okay. If you have somebody out there yelling at you, give it a crack. What does that mean?
I'm going to go with give it your best.
I mean, I think so. Yeah. Like I could see that, like a little bit of like a cracking of the whip. You're going to get out there and hustle.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I got you. How about Bonza run? Are we even speaking English anymore? What does Bonza mean?
Well, I'm gonna go with bon as in like bonbon, so like candy. So maybe like a sweet run would be my interpretation.
I think that's fantastic. Evidently, it means a great run. So you had a great run. So like that's what we endeavor to do every time we go out for a run.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like when you go out for your run with a friend, what would you think that you would call them?
A running mate, a running friend.
You're so close. Yeah. Running. So mateship, I guess. Like kind of like instead of relationship or your friendship, it's your mateship. Huh. Interesting. Okay. One more. And then I promise we'll move on. This is crazy. I don't even know. Like I'm looking at the answer and looking at the thing and the phrase is flat out like a lizard drinking.
I'm going to take that as sitting on the beaches, relaxing.
Drinking with like a cocktail, right? It means going all out or running at your max effort. Oh is that true? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. See, but
that's going to be your new favorite phrase.
Flat out like a lizard drinking. Yeah, that definitely. I think this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to hearing mate quite frequently, and good on ya. I'm definitely going to take these as compliments. Okay, let's get into a little bit of like pop culture. Ashley, what do you got underneath to get me jazzed for this particular Sydney run? What should I be diving into?
Yeah, so there are some awesome movies from this area. You have Crocodile Dundee, Finding Nemo, which was a shock to me, Muriel's Wedding, Australia. So lots of great movies there. Some songs that are from the area are Down Under from Men at Work, Land Down Under from Ludi, and then I Still Call Australia Home from Peter Allen. Now, something obviously that's not movies or song related, expanded a little bit, is obviously everybody's favorite crocodile hunter that sadly is no longer with us.
But his kiddo continues to like keep it going. Okay. Yeah, that'll be fun. I wonder if there'll be any references.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's something from my childhood that still kind of lives on to this day.
So do you like his kiddo? Have you followed any of what his kiddo's doing? They look eerily similar.
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that you were kind of a nature kind of gal. Makes sense though. It does.
Absolutely. It's always fun to see the little different animals and stuff that isn't always from here.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm also going to say that I'm looking forward to seeing all of you guys that are going out there this year to join me in Sydney. And there you have it. This is everything that you need to know about the Sydney Marathon, the newest of the World Marathon majors. But I want you guys to weigh in and let me know, is it officially a spring race or do we call it summer because we're going to be training in summer? You guys let us know what you think. I will say I do think it's shaping up to be a bucket list race for runners worldwide.
Absolutely. And don't forget, it's not just about the race. Sydney offers world-class sightseeing, incredible food, and a classic Aussie hospitality. Whether you're aiming for a personal best or soaking up the vibes, this marathon is going to be one to remember.
Awesome. And if you're thinking about running Sydney or any of the majors, be sure to join us at the Stride Collective or Women of the World Marathon Majors on Facebook. We've got training tips, travel hacks, of course, and plenty of running banter, whether it's in Aussie or in typical American English. The links on the links for both of these groups are going to be in show notes. Next up, we're heading to Berlin, home of world records, fast paces, and some serious marathon magic. Until then, mates, keep striding toward extraordinary.